exactly is a common sexuality education program, for example, for A, right? Its purposes and its content. Since the knowledge and maturity of a secondary school child is vastly different from that of an 18-year-old, right? Does the program differentiate, as it should, between the different age groups by delivering different kinds of information graded to the level of schooling? This was not discussed. As a parent, I hope to have a view on that and contribute to that discourse, right? But it was not raised at all. 4B. What makes for a good common comprehensive sexuality education program? CSE, I think I better shorten it. What makes for a good CSE program? And who should make the decision on what is good? Should it be parents? Should it be a group like Aware or a group like Focus for the Family? Right? How was the program devised, both in its principles and its implementation? How does the society we are and wish to be impact on these questions? I think these were not raised. What exactly was in the program that Aware was teaching at schools? We had sort of inklings about it, right? But I thought that since Aware was at fault, let's look through what Aware actually has. Let's put it on the web. Let's discuss this. Right? Is it really pro-gay, anti-gay? Was it sufficiently anti-gay? Was it sufficiently pro-gay? Right? What is meant by pro-gay? What's meant by anti-gay? I think these questions ought to be asked. Do parents know enough about the program? Should they? If they should and don't, why do they not know about the program? And I have a whole other list of 3 or 4 other questions. And these questions were not raised at all. First in the mainstream media, right? And also, I think not in the alternative media. Okay, of course I understand the alternative media, you guys are running on a shoestring, you got your hands tied, and in terms of resources and so forth. But one would expect that the mainstream media should be able to do that. Now, I don't want to beat the press too much as being a former and quite a long time reporter of the Straits Times, right? After all, if we believe that the press is in the control of government, then the press is only but the piper, right? Not the one who pays it. Okay? Of course, the deficiencies of the press, or since the press is at least as passive as it is not, the deficiencies of the press system, more accurately, right, is reflective of the situation about public debate in our country. Aware is an instance of an unformed public sphere in Singapore. Right? Well, technically, we can talk about public sphere. Public sphere is, in simple terms, is a space where people can come together to talk about issues which are relevant to them, to society, in order to, well, have an influence on government policy. So ours, when people discuss the Aware issue, we just talk, well, in a proper public sphere, you should do that, right? The problem is Singapore doesn't have a proper public sphere, and that is the problem, right? So one of the main players in the public sphere is, of course, the mass media, and we know that the mass media finds it hard to do its job. Is new media, mainstream media finds it hard to do its job. Is new media, alternative media, able to do the job? Right? I think the question remains unanswered. Right? I think it's dependent on many other factors than just the media itself. Right? Larger societal issues. For example, civil society. Right? What civil society is, the space that it has, the space that it claims, the space it is allowed to inhabit and claim, this affects the public sphere. B, public intellectuals, including people from the university and think tanks, to what extent are they engaged in the issues at all? Why were so many of the public intellectuals silent publicly? Why were the intellectuals, why were the intellectuals of Singapore so silent on this? Right? And thirdly, of course, the political parties. Unfortunately, the political parties were silent on these issues too. You can say that there are maybe other more important fish to fry, but this concerns policy, concerns education, concerns democracy. Why were they largely silent? So, when we talk about debate in Singapore and we talk about public sphere, the conclusion we have to come is that we really are an unformed public sphere, and that the mass media is but a reflection of that lack of, well, the lack of the public sphere. Right? And may I end up with one story about, do I have time? Yeah. As a playwright, even though the last play I wrote was like, wow, okay, 9 years ago. As a playwright, as a political playwright, one of the questions you ask is, why are you doing it, right? And as a political playwright, you want to say that you write a political play because you want people to talk about it and to think about it and eventually come to a conclusion, maybe X or Y should change. Right? And it is the nature of the public sphere in Singapore is that if you look at the plays that have been written, the political plays that have been written in the last, well, maybe decade and a half, what happens is that intellectuals, the Straits Times, mass media, and I would even include TOC, right, discuss issues which are interesting from the artist's point of view, but actually not at the core of what a political playwright is interested in. Okay, so let me give an example. We write a play, right? And we say X is happening in Singapore, right? The Straits Times will say, is this a good play artistically? Is it a bad play artistically? Which is interesting in itself, right? Fine. Is it new or is it old? Right? Which is quite interesting in itself, well, as for historians at least, right? But we never discuss, or the Straits Times does not discuss, and I don't see many blogs or TOC, and okay, I don't want to be TOC, okay? Again, right? We don't see the discussion on, does the play tell the truth? Does it tell us about society, about ourselves, and should we be worried that it is saying these things? Right? And we never discuss those issues. Okay? Not in the last, well, 5-10 years. Because there's no public sphere. And because everybody goes to a play, even a political play, okay, most people go to a play, even a political play as entertainment, as a good night out. They go and have their play, they go and see the JBJ play, maybe a Chi Sun Jan play, an LKY play, a play about censorship, right? They say, wow, so brave, so interesting. Let's go to Newton Hawker Center, have our supper, okay, have a beer, go back tomorrow, go back to work, life goes on as normal. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right,